quick video on how to find a networking configuration in both Windows and Linux operating system. I'm going to assume you already know the basic concepts here, so I'll just show you how the commands work. When we're looking for a network configuration, we're looking primarily for IP address, netmask, and gateway. Sometimes that netmask will be represented in CIDR notation, and it's the same thing as a netmask, it's just written in a different format. So we'll see that both ways, and we'll also look for our DNS server. DNS is the cause of a lot of problems on networks, and so being able to identify what system what DNS server your system is using is really important. So in Windows, we have the ipconfig command, and you can modify it with the /all switch, which shows you a more complete listing. I have Windows running here in a virtual machine. I'm going to open up command prompt, cmd, and then I can just type in ipconfig, and it will show me the simplified listing of my network configuration. Some systems, there may be more than one network adapter, so you're going to have to use a little bit of logic to figure out which adapter you really want to be looking at. And here are three key pieces of information: our IPv4 address, our subnet mask, and our default gateway. Easy as that. If I use the up arrow, I can repeat the last command, ipconfig. I'm going to add a /all switch, and it's going to show me the same information, but also some additional details. Helpful to see here is that DHCP was enabled. That means that this networking configuration was provided by DHCP on our network automatically. I didn't statically type this in. This was dynamically assigned to us. Our IPv4 address is here, our subnet mask, the lease. That is how long this information is good for. When you receive this networking configuration through DHCP, you're given a time at which it expires, and then your computer will ask for a refreshed network configuration. And that way your system can actually automatically change when the network configuration changes. Very nice system. Our default gateway is here. Our DHCP server, that is who on the network provided this information to us. These don't have to be the same addresses. It's just the way it's configured in this network. And then DNS server is down here, second from last, 10.0.2.3. So here's all the information you need: IP address, netmask, gateway, and DNS server, all in one simple, nice command. In Linux, it's a little bit different. We're going to use this remote connection to a XFCE desktop. And here we're going to open up a terminal. Same idea as a command prompt in Windows. Enlarge the font a little bit so it's easier to see. And our basic command is IP. If you look up older reference material, you'll frequently see ifconfig. And this will still work on some Linux systems, although it is deprecated and it will no longer be used in time. So better to get used to this newer command. And if we do an IP space A, it's going to show us, well, what's going on with our networking adapters. In a Linux system, they show you the loopback adapter. So here's this first device, adapter number 1, and this is our loopback device. It's always going to be 127.0.0.1. Here's our second networking adapter. This is our real Ethernet adapter here, and the address is listed after the inet name, 10.0.100.9. And here's that CIDR notation I made reference to: classless interdomain routing. And it's just a way of representing our netmask, but in a different format. Most modern networking systems will use CIDR instead of netmask, although that's not always true. So getting to know both systems is actually equally important. All right, so that's our IP address. We can actually tighten this up a little bit by piping the output of IP A, that's the pipe character above the enter key. to grep pattern matching, and I want to match any line that has INET in it. So when I do that, it's going to condense it down to just the address parts of this information above. Makes it a bit easier to read. Same information. Great, so we have IP address and then net mask in the form of a CIDR notation. We need the gateway now, and to get that, we're going to type in IPR, and that will show us the routing. Routing is basically how does your data get from one place to another. So on my network, okay, I can connect to all my computers locally, but if I want to connect outside of my network, I need some routing to help me. And the default gateway will allow me to connect to addresses outside of my network. So we have default here and the address 10.0.0.1. So now we have the IP address, the net mask and CIDR notation, and we have the gateway, 3 key pieces of information. To get the DNS server, we're going to do a little trick. There's a way to look it up more directly, but this one will always work. And this will actually work in Windows the same exact way. I type in nslookup google.com. Here's the command right here. The first thing it's going to tell me is, well, what DNS server did it use to look up the IP address for this domain name? And it used 127.0.0.53. You may have noticed that's similar to the loopback address. So the loopback address always is 127.0.0.1. It's a special address that says, don't connect outside of this device, connect to this device. And it's a little networking trick we need to use for some situations. And this is doing the same. It's just saying, well, don't go outside of this computer to find this answer. Use the internal DNS server. This Linux distribution has a DNS server built in, and so it's going to use the software built into itself. It doesn't need an outside source to start the process of looking up this domain name. So in this case, the DNS server is 127.0.0.53. And that's the 4 pieces of information that we wanted to look up. To summarize those commands, we have ipconfig, ipconfig/all for Windows. That's all you need to remember. And then for Linux, we've got a little bit more, IPA for finding our IP addresses and subnet mask, IPR for the routing, which will tell us what the gateway is. And then we can use this nslookup google.com command to find our DNS server.